Today we welcome local author Yasmine Charles. Thank you for joining us for our Meet the Author program offered by the Virginia Beach Public Library. Let me begin by asking you to tell us about your background and how you got started with writing.
Yes, I am a native of Haiti. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, and by trade, I'm actually a trained chef, and I became a culinary educator. And I really never set out to become a writer, but something happened to me during my senior year of college at Norfolk State. For many of us veterans who do leave the military, we struggle. And for me, I find myself homeless during my senior year. And so after coming out of that, I really wanted to kind of understand what happened to me. And one particular evening, I opened my safe, pulled out all of my diaries from the time that I was 19, 20 years old, and I read all five of them. And my own story just kind of really blew me away. And I thought that this is something that a lot of us, particularly women who grew up in dysfunctional families, in blended families, could relate to. And so I decided to turn my diary into a book, and that's how I became an author.
All right, tell us about your latest book.
Yes, the book is called The Cost of the American Dream, Diary of a Homeless Soul. It talks about trauma and abuse from an immigrant perspective. And every chapter takes the reader to a different country or different city around the world because during my entire writing, I was on active duty. And so we're in Japan, we're in China, we're in Hawaii, in Haiti, in Nigeria. It's a really wonderful read.
And tell me, is writing your primary career?
No, it's not. I was a teacher for 3 years up until the school closed, and I became an administrator. And so writing for me is just something that I did because I thought it was a story that I needed to put out. And in fact, right now I'm actually working on my second book, which is a follow-up on my memoir, which is going to be a workbook to help my readers really just get into their emotional healing.
Right.
Mhm.
And can you speak to whether you're self-published or you have a publisher?
I used I used a publisher because I really wanted the book to really stand out. And so I spent the money and I was assigned an author representative, an editor, and an author's package were sent to me, and it was really wonderful. So I recommend to anybody out there who's, you know, maybe publishing for the first time I mean, of course, you want to do your research. If you do want to self-publish, that's great, but I definitely would recommend the service of a publisher.
And tell me how you promote your work.
Yes. So I promote my book on various social media platforms. I've done book signings at Barnes and Nobles. I've done some interviews, and I also use my YouTube channel as a way to talk about my book. So yes, ma'am. And I also do public speaking as well, too.
Do you find that part of it to be time consuming?
It is because anything we're doing is gonna take your time, but I enjoy every moment of it, primarily because of the stories that come back to me from so many people who have similar experiences to mine, or from people who were encouraged from hearing or reading my story, and it's just really giving them the voice and the inspiration to really speak about their own and to really get into mental health because my book is really all about encouraging one another to dig back into those things that are still haunting us from our past. And so I'm a mental health advocate, and so the fact that I have people coming back to me and telling me how encouraging my story has been to them, the extra work, the hard work is really worth it.
I'm glad. It sounds like that's very validating for you, so
Yes,
good.
absolutely.
Where do you get ideas for your books?
Well, my inspiration comes from when I was in high school. One of my best books that I read was The Diary of Anne Frank. And so her writing, her style was my inspiration. And so I actually use that same format in my book. And I also was inspired by the show Frasier, believe it or not, because in every episode, before every scene came along, there was an introduction to the viewers letting us know what we're about to watch. And so I pretty much use that same format. So I'm going to say The Diary of Anne Frank and the show Frasier, they are my inspiration. Of course, I've read different books as well, but those two were my main examples on how to format my book.
Yes, I like that very well. I have to say that that's very unique
Thank you.
from what I've heard from people.
I
Explain a
love it.
little bit about your writing process.
Okay. So writing to me, I really use the voice in my head. Because, for instance, if I am driving and a thought or an inspiration comes in, I will pull over and I write it down. And I've also gotten to the habit of keeping my diary, my journal right next to me on my nightstand. That way, if I wake up in the middle of the night, an idea or a sentence comes to me, then I write it down. And it's usually very impulsive, and that's the beauty of writing, because you never know when the thought will come in, and that's really how I get inspired. That's my writing process.
All right. Do you keep a journal then now and have done so for many years?
Yes, I started journaling when I was 19 years old, and I'm in my 40s now, and I still do. And to me, it has been um, it's been therapeutic, because it's wonderful when you can go back and look at your life 10, 20 years ago to see how you grew. And for me, my journal has taught me how resilient I am, because we live day to day, and we think our daily lives are kind of boring, but for me, going back to these events in my life have taught me how, number one, how resilient I am. And so oftentimes when we're complaining about something that's we're happening now, but when we go back to something that we endured or overcame 10, 15 years ago, we realize, you know what, if I can overcome this, if I can survive this, I'm going to be okay tomorrow or next month. So, journaling has been very therapeutic for me. It really has kept me grounded. And it's also a wonderful way to really get your thoughts out on paper. That way you don't have to carry that pain or that trauma or that frustration.
Yes,
It's really, really wonderful.
I like that.
Hmm.
Right. Where is this book available for purchase?
Yes, my book is available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes and Noble as well as Walmart. And I also have a whole lot of copies myself. So if you want to reach out to me directly on social media, I can, autograph it for you and mail it to you. And so these are the different ways they are available. Yes.
Will it be available, or is it available as an ebook as well?
Yes, it is actually available as an ebook on Amazon, yeah, .com, correct.
Right. What is a piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring writer?
Hmm. That's a good question. When I started writing my book, my goal was not to make money. And so I say, write your story, discover who your audience is, and the money will come. Do not pursue writing for the purpose of money. Don't do that. Write your story, and think about your legacy, because even after you are long past, you will continue to speak because of your book that's available out there. So that's my biggest advice. Tell your story as an inspiration for others, and focus on your legacy rather than the money that you can make by writing it.
Very good. Will you take a moment to read us an excerpt from your book, please?
Yes, I sure can. So this is from my introduction, entitled Roots and Causes. And I really start the book by talking about my foundation as a child. And I said, Elvis Presley once said, "The truth is like the sun. You can shut it out for a while, but it ain't going away." I don't know when this awful feeling crept in and arrested me, but for most of my life, I felt like a kid, like a nobody who was tolerated but never really wanted in my family. I later became a young woman who navigated through life without a safe place to fall. It would take me years to finally discover my alabaster value, my worth, and my place in the world. If you've ever felt the same sentiments, have a seat and keep reading. From beginning to end, you'll be joining me in a spiritual and military journey around the world as I figure out this thing called life. This is the introduction.
I like that.
Thank you.
That makes me want to read your book.
Thank you, Christine.
You are welcome. Do you have anything else to add?
You know what? What I want to say to maybe would-be authors out there, who I don't know, might not know where to start, just start writing and just get yourself out, just get yourself a journal and let the thoughts come in because I get these questions all the time. How do you start the whole writing process? Just get yourself a journal and you'll be amazed at the thought that comes to you and have fun because it's an amazing journey just to be able to put a book out there because again it is part of your legacy, so just go for it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me today, Yasmin. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and best of luck with your new book.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.